It's good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millsy, back with Hometown Commander, back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I brew my version 1.0 deck list of the Commander in front of us on my quest out brew a Magic World. As always, there's going to be a deck list down in the description below. We are on our second to last week of content before we jump into Thunder Junction. I'm very excited about that. Over the next week or two, we're going to be hitting some more random brews, as well as hitting a couple of the Karlov Manor decks that just didn't fit into the schedule that I wanted to fit in. And we're going to do one of those today in Krenko, Baron of 10th Street. We're going to talk about some upgrades that, of course, it is going to include the Fallout cards, but Krenko is a 3-mana 3/3 Gobbo with haste. We can tap to sacrifice an artifact to put a +1/+1 counter on each goblin we control. And whenever an artifact is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, we can pay a red. If we do, we create a 1/1 Gobbo. It gains haste until end of turn. Well, Krenko has always been notorious about doing one thing, which is making goblin tokens. And Baron of 10th Street isn't any different. But the cool thing I think about Krenko, Baron of 10th Street, that's a little bit different from 10th Street Kingpin and Mob Boss in the past, is that we get to have fun with artifacts. Now, I'm sure that some people aren't going to feel that way about it, but of course, the easiest artifacts for us to manufacture and take advantage of are treasures, and we're going to try to use those. Of course, Wizards has put a bunch of treasure support in red, so we're going to do that. But there's a couple other things we can do as well. So our goals for the deck, we're going to try to get some good artifacts on the boards to sacrifice, whether that be regular artifacts or even treasures. We're going to talk about how treasures can work really well with Krenko. We're going to make some Gobbos to buff, whether we do it with Krenko's ability by paying a red or we use spells to make Gobbos. We're going to make a bunch of Gobbos to buff, and then we're going to get in there. We're just going to try to get some abilities on board to get our Gobbos in there, and with Krenko putting hopefully counters on each of them every turn, maybe we can make a board state wide enough to push in for the game. Well, let's talk about good artifacts to sacrifice, because of course there's treasures, and we'll get to the treasures. But there's a lot of these 1 or 2 mana artifacts that I think are going to become pretty darn good. Yeah, something like Chromatic Star, which is we can tap 1 and tap it to sacrifice Chromatic Star and add a mana of any color. But I think what we care more about is its bottom ability, says when it's put into the graveyard from the battlefield, draw a card. So with Krenko, we could tap, sacrifice this, draw a card, pay a red, get a Gobbo. Same thing with Acre Wellspring. When it comes in or when it's put in the graveyard, we draw a card. We get some card draw, but also have an artifact around for Krenko to sacrifice. Implement a combustion, we can sacrifice it to deal damage to a player, but otherwise we can just sacrifice it to Krenko to draw a card. And again, these are things that in red we want, because all we have really is impulse draw. So it's like, by impulse draw I mean either the exile card draw or draw 2, pitch 2, or things like that. We'll talk about some of the other card draw we have, but I think this is still important, these little artifacts that are going to do this, because they're going to work into Krenko's abilities. Myco Synth Wellspring, whenever it comes in or gets put into the graveyard to the battlefield, we can get a basic land. That's great for a little bit of ramp. Prize Statue, whenever it ETBs or goes to the graveyard, we get a treasure. And then Terrarian, we can sack it to add a mana, or we can just draw a card whenever it leaves the battlefield. But again, for these ones that draw this card, these are 1 mana artifacts. I don't think we mind putting mana into in the early turns to then turn around and sacrifice them with Krenko's ability. Wizard's Rocket seems like a fun one in just getting a card out of it when it gets sacrificed. A caddy manufacturer can take any clue, food, or treasure we make and turn it into all 3, which just gives us way more artifacts to use for Krenko's ability. And then Rose Cutthroat Raider. It says at the end of combat on your turn, if you attack this turn, create a junk token for each opponent you attacked, and whenever we sack a junk, we add red mana. This is great with Krenko, because every junk that we sacrifice to Krenko is going to mean we can get one of those 1/1 Gobbos out of the ability, and that's pretty darn important, I think, in the grand scheme of things, when we need to start going wide and prepping our board. So we talked about some of the non-treasures. Well, let's talk about treasures. Brass's Bounty, of course, is a great big mana red spell, making a ton of treasures. Hit the Mother Load could still be fun. Discovering Dead and making treasures equal to the difference. What I like about Krenko's ability is you can sacrifice one of those tapped treasures if need be and still get value from it. Seize the Spoils is going to make us a treasure and allow us to draw some cards, but we do have to do that patented discard in order to do it. Big score and unexpected windfall are the same thing. Draw 2 and make 2 treasures. The only problem is we have to, of course, pitch a card to do it. But I don't think we mind if we're getting more card draw and then getting treasures down that we can use later, and then strike it rich just to make a treasure, allowing Krenko to use that for its ability. We then have some cards toward the top end of the price scale. The Reaver Cleaver allowing us to make treasures equal to the number of damage we've dealt. This can be pretty good on Krenko or any of our other goblins. Have them hit in for damage and get that many treasures. And then Descent into Avernus can give us a ton of treasures and definitely bring us some value with a little bit of downside. You know, the longer it lasts, the more it can hurt us. But in the short term, this is going to push us pretty darn hard forward and allow us to really take advantage of it. Well, how are we going to make some Gobbos to buff? Well, not only do we have Krenko's ability, but goblins are known for these 2 or 3 mana red spells that make them. Whirling Outburst makes 3. Krenko's Command makes 2. Love that new art there from the Clue Edition. Kodotha Rebirth, we can sacrifice an artifact to make 3 for just 1 red mana, which is pretty darn good. We have things like Legion War Boss, which makes 1 every turn. And then, of course, we're playing our other 2 Krenkos. Krenko Mob Boss, so just double the amount of goblins we have, and then Krenko Tinstrate Kingpin, which is going to make them on attack, which is very important as well because we're putting counters on this, and it's getting more counters as attacks, making just more and more goblins. But hey, okay, we're going wide, we're getting our Gobbos bigger, but we got to get in there. We're going to do it with things like City on Fire, meaning any of them hit through is going to hit harder. We can use our goblins to convoke it out. Shared Animosity, give them that buff, make them hit harder. And then Frosty of the Wilds to give them all trampled, so that way the bigger they get, the harder they get for our opponents to deal with. Frosty of the Wilds, this trample type effect is very abnormal for red, but we're very happy to have it, especially when we can get in and go wide. We're also going to use some of our goblins that will buff the board. Goblin Chieftain giving all of our goblins haste. Goblin Trashmaster giving them all +1/+1. Hobgoblin Bandit giving them all +1/+1. Hobgoblin can deal damage equal to the number of goblins that have come in under your control as turn to any target, which can be helpful if we pair it with something like Tinstrate Kingpin or Mob Boss to deal some damage. That can be to a player, that can be to a creature. Hobgoblin has a lot of utility that I think is kind of fun, but it's not just in combat that we're trying to get damage, even though it's a great way to do it. We have things like Goblin Warstrike and Massive Raid that'll deal damage equal to the number of creatures we have to target a player or target creature or player. This could be really good. The more goblins we have could take somebody out or take somebody out after combat. And then Hedron Detonator is going to deal damage anytime an artifact comes in, and then we can sack 2 artifacts to, unpulse off the top. But Detonator is great because all these treasures that we're making or all these other things that we're making are going to be damaging our opponents. And that's important to get that chip damage in, so as we're going wide, we have less damage we need to do to our opponents, right? We're playing in a format that has 40 life, which means in all reality, we might need to do 100+ damage to win the game. Hopefully not, but if we do, any chip damage we can get is definitely going to help. Well, I've said it before in this show, and I'll say it again. No list is perfect, and this is just my version 1.0 list, meaning there is some things that need change. But these are my ideas for 3 cards I think as a way to test this deck. Could be cards that could be thought about being brought in, because I think they give good value. Both of our schematics here have, whenever they ETB or are put into the graveyard, we get an artifact creature token. I think these are really, really good. I wanted to focus on the draw artifacts a little bit more, because I think getting the more cards could be more important to make sure we have the mana to do the things we want to do. But if you notice that your deck isn't getting enough artifacts out, I think both of these could be great in that right. And then Sticky Fingers just allows us to give either Krenko or maybe one of our other goblins Menace, get it in for some attacking, and get some treasures if it does hit with our opponents. I think that's important. And Sticky Fingers with that Menace specifically could be good enough to either have Krenko threaten for commander damage or just allow another goblin to get in for some good damage. But let's get into our playtest, and we are going to start out with a pretty interesting hand of 3 lands, a 3-lander, a Coat of Arms, Skull Clamp, Kodotha Rebirth, and Chromatic Star. Very interesting hand, and I'm interested to see how this one plays out. Turn on, we draw a mountain. We're going to play that Chromatic Star down. Again, nothing to do with it at the moment, but it gives us the ability to sack it to Krenko right away the turn he comes down, if that's something we want to do. Turn 2, we're still 1 off the Matron and Krenko. We could definitely get the Skull Clamp down here and just continue to build towards getting there our next turn. Turn 3, I think I like just getting Krenko down here. There's probably the argument that you run the risk of Krenko getting targeted here, but I still think it's worth it. Now, the only downside about tapping Krenko right away and sacking this Chromatic Star is there's only just Krenko, right, to put that damage on, and I feel like just having one more red would be more beneficial, so I'd probably rather wait the turn. We could play something else, maybe get a few more goblins on the battlefield, or get something else on the battlefield, and then do it and be able to have that 4th red in order to pay for that last ability and actually get a goblin out of it. So we'll go one more turn. And here we actually draw something that's kind of interesting. Tago Goblin Weaponsmith. This is a card that I thought could be fun in here. Whenever a land comes in, we create an equipment token named Rock with a good creature has 1 tap, sacrifice Rock, deals 2 damage to any target, and equip 1. What I think is interesting about Tago is we can just sacrifice these rocks instead of something else. So I think here my original plan was to Goblin Matron, and I can't think of anything off the top of my head I really want to get here. I mean, the argument could be made, I guess the answer is probably 10th Street Kingpin or Mob Boss to start really getting goblins down. So I guess that's an argument. Or we could have fun and go for the Tago. But I think we go for the Matron here. It makes more sense. We search our library for our Gobbo, reveal it, and put it into our hand. So I think I'm going to go ahead and get, I don't know, my heart likes 10th Street Kingpin a little bit more. Either of them are going to have to wait to turn to use their ability. But next turn, even if Krenko get attacked, we could still get a token on him. You know, we could still get a counter on him and get him going that way. And then I think, let's see, we don't have anything to make I really don't think we want to get rid of the star just yet. I mean, yeah, we would draw a card, but I think we're still missing some value. Maybe we try to put Krenko in somewhere if we can get an attack. Otherwise, I just think we wait. We go one more turn. This turn, I think I put Krenko down here. And then I would go ahead and put down 10th Street Kingpin. I would tap Baron to 10th Street, sack the Chromatic Star for the ability, putting a counter on everybody. I would draw off the Chromatic Star, and then I would pay to red to put a counter on everybody, and then go ahead and get a 1/1 Goblin. And this is great because we can actually do the 1/1 Goblin before the +1/+1 goes off. So think about it this way. We would tap and sacrifice the Chromatic Star to put that ability on the stack. Then Krenko would trigger because we just sacrificed an artifact. And we would pay a red, put the Goblin down first, and then put the counter on everybody. I'm only going to go one more turn, so for the sake of this, I won't put a counter on everything. I'm just going to put a counter on Krenko so I can just do the math quick when we go to attack with Krenko, Teacher Kingpin next turn. But we'll go one more turn. I actually think I could have played that mountain last turn, but that's okay. Here, I think I would just go with Coat of Arms, probably. Mainly because this is going to give all of our Gobbos +3/+3 at the moment. And then when Krenko goes to attack, it now being a 5/6, it's going to become a 6/7, make 6 goblins, and then now they're all getting +9/+9, and these other goblins are going to be at risk. And now we're in this end game where we're just going to continue to pummel our opponents unless they remove our board. And I think that's exactly what we want in this deck. We want to hit a game state where we're just pummeling into our opponents. Let's go one more Goldfish, and let's give this hand a try. Start with the 2-lander. We see the Terrarian, we see a Diamond Pickaxe, which can get us some treasures on attack. Treasure Map can make us some treasures, and we do see that 10th Street Kingpin. I like this hand, I think it's interesting. Let's rock with it. We get a Mountain down turn 1, and I think we'll just get the Terrarian in tapped and get it there ready so that if we do get Krenko in, we can start using its ability. Turn 2, I mean, the Treasure Map could make sense. Getting the Axe in could make sense. I think I'd probably just get the Treasure Map in. Again, if we don't draw land next turn, we could maybe play the Pickaxe and tap this to scry 1 and get towards making those treasures. If we get the land here, we could commit like Krenko down and then get 10th Street Kingpin down and then get Baron down next turn. Well, turn 3 we whiff on our red, which definitely stings, but that's okay. As much as that pains me to say that, I kind of wish we had drawn the red there, or drawn the mountain there, but that's okay. We see a Treasure Napper, we see a Goblin Matron, so we're pretty much ready to go. I think I would probably pay 1 tap to scry with the Treasure Map, and we see a mountain. That's great. That means next turn we can just do our plan. So I would probably just go ahead and get the Pickaxe down. We know that it's coming next turn, so we're good to go. This turn, I would, like I said, like I would have done last turn, get the Tinstrate Kingpin down, get it ready to attack next turn, and we can tap Krenko and sacrifice the Terrarian in order to get the counters and then get more goblins out of Krenko. Again, no mana left to a treasure map, and that's okay. Turn 4, no land again, which kind of stinks, but, or sorry, probably turn 5. Either way, we get Krenko down here, tap, sacrifice the Terrarian to draw a card. We unfortunately don't have the land to get the Goblin, but that's okay. We're putting a counter on each of these. Now Krenko's up to a 2-3. Tinstrate Kingpin's up to a 2-3. We attack with Krenko, making it now a 3-4. And now we're getting 3 Goblins, which is going to help start, making our board state get wider here, right? And now next turn, if we tap Krenko to sacrifice something else, now we're getting counters across more. We'll go one more turn. Sadly, we miss another land drop. Jeez. I could see an argument for the shared animosity here, making them a little bit bigger and attacking. I could see the argument for trying to fish for another land. I like the idea of getting this combustion down to draw another card. I guess we'd have to pretty much decide. I think the animosity makes the most sense here. Get it down, tap Krenko. I think, let's see. Do we get rid of the map or the pickaxe? I guess the pickaxe isn't really helping us at the moment. This could get Krenko up to, or Tinstrate up to a 4-5 and then a 5-6. And that would give us even more goblins the next turn for shared animosity. I think I do that. I sack the pickaxe, get a counter on everyone. Again, Krenko's now up to a 4-5. It attacks. It can become a 5-6, making 5 more goblins. And then again, I think we're in a very similar position we were last time, where unless our opponents deal with this, we can just overrun with the Gobbos. But let me know, what do you think of Krenko down in the comment section below. This deck's kind of interesting. I think it seems pretty cool. It's not really what I would expect to play from a red deck, but it would be something I think I'd be interested in trying out. So let me know, what do you think of Krenko down in the comment section below. I'd love to chat with you about it, and I will catch you guys next time.